Viewer's Choice series at the end of the year. And the viewer that picked this topic was Dan L. Thank you, Dan, for this interesting topic. So I'm going to whisper to you this book about the Inuit. Where in the world? The area that surrounds the North Pole, where the ground stays frozen throughout the entire year, is called the Arctic. Inuit live in the Arctic areas of Canada, Greenland, Russia, and the United States. Though Inuit communities are located across the Arctic landscape, most Inuit live near water. About 5,000 to 10,000 years ago, groups of people traveled from Asia to North America. It is believed that they crossed the Pacific Ocean using the Bering Land Bridge. Large glaciers that covered much of North America and northern Europe had not yet melted. Sea levels were lower, exposing a large area of land. The Bering Land Bridge created a passage between Siberia and Alaska. During a hunt, ancestors of the Inuit followed herds of animals across the land bridge. This first group of people settled in the Alaska region. About 4,000 years ago, the climate warmed. These people, known as the pre-Dorset culture, started to move farther east. The pre-Dorset peoples carved tools from antlers, ivory, bone, and stone, and used harpoons to hunt. The pre-Dorset culture evolved over 3,000 years. They became the Dorset peoples. The Dorset lived in communities of 3 to 15 families. In the summer, they lived in tents made of animal skins. In the winter, they built homes partially underground. These peoples were skilled artists. Sculptures found in the area suggest the Dorset peoples carved Arctic animals such as birds, polar bears, and seals. The Dorset believed some of these carvings were magical. About 1,000 years ago, early Inuit peoples from Alaska spread across the Arctic. One group, known as the Thule, traveled as far as northeastern Greenland. The Thule mainly used the bowhead whale for food and tools. Their descendants are the Inuit of today. Modern Inuit culture evolved around 1750. For decades, the indigenous peoples of the Arctic were called Eskimos. The Ojibwa native peoples gave them this name, which was thought to mean eater of raw meat. Linguists now believe the word Eskimo means to net snowshoes. The word Inuit, which means the people, was made the official name of the Arctic peoples in 1977. Inuit is the word used to describe the entire group of these indigenous peoples. One member of the group is called an Inuk. Stories and legends. Creating and telling stories was an important part of Inuit culture. During the cold days and long nights of the winter months, they spent much time inside. Families and communities would make up and share stories to entertain each other. Alright, I just turned up the gain a little bit because I thought it was too quiet. Let me know if it sounds better. They spent much time inside. Families and communities would make up and share stories to entertain each other. They often used songs to tell stories. The songs explained a story or described an event. Dancing was also used to tell some stories. Inuit storytelling taught values and proper ways of doing things. It was also a way to pass Inuit history along to young people. Elders would tell stories to their children and grandchildren. Storytelling was a fun game for children. Most girls were given carved story knives from their fathers. The girls used these knives to draw pictures in the ground as they told their stories. They told tales about their family the souls of the dead. One legend tells of the man who created the world. He built himself wings, and a sparrow taught him how to fly. This man became a raven. With the sparrow's help, the raven created humans from clay. He also created animals for the people to hunt. To create night and day, the raven threw light and dark rocks into the sky. Another story describes the creation of day and night. In this story, the sun is a spirit girl who carries a torch. The moon is her older brother. He is a good hunter. Day and night come as the boy, the moon, chases his sister, the sun, across the sky. The torch flickers as he tries to grab it away from his sister. Out of the past. Life has always been difficult for the indigenous peoples of the Arctic region. The climate has always been rugged and harsh. The Inuit and their ancestors have had to work hard to survive. Still, they greatly enjoy life. Over the past 10,000 years, there have been times when the climate warmed. During these times, Inuit ancestors were able to move farther east from Alaska. Warming trends meant that more animals were available to hunt. Warm summer months allowed for a longer growing season. As a result, there were more berries to pick. When the climate cooled again, food sources were harder to find, and whole communities ended. The Arctic climate has not changed much since the arrival of the Europeans in the 1500s. The Europeans discovered Inuit settlements while searching for a shorter route from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. Before their arrival, the Inuit did not have much contact with different cultures other than neighboring native cultures. The arrival of the Europeans changed their lives. Many of the items the Europeans brought to the Arctic were useful. The Inuit traded furs and oil for food, guns, and supplies. Guns made hunting easier, but they also caused some changes to Inuit culture. As a result of European settlement in the Arctic, the Inuit spent more time trapping furs to trade, which meant they spent more time hunting and less time finding food. Fewer Inuit were living in the traditional nomadic lifestyle. Governments arrived in the north and built settlements near trading posts. These settlements included houses, nursing stations, and schools. Soon, many Inuit traded for the items they needed for their daily lives. Along with fur traders came missionaries. Missionaries are people who spread their religion to other cultures. Sometimes they believe they are creating a better living situation for these cultures. Although the missionaries believed they were helping the Inuit, they were actually changing the way the Inuit lived. The Inuits' traditional spiritual beliefs started to fade as they learned more about European culture. Social structures. Family has always been very important to the Inuit. Groups of hunting families lived and worked together to increase their chances of finding and sharing food. Each person's role was equally important. In Inuit society, the roles of men and women were strictly defined. The men fished, hunted, and built houses. The women worked animal skins and dried meat after a hunt. Women also cooked and sewed clothing. Children were always expected to help. Boys helped at home until they could hunt, and girls worked with their mothers. Inuit groups moved from place to place throughout the year. The group camped for a few months in places where there were many animals to hunt. Each group was much like one big family. They functioned without government, tribes, and chiefs. Although some people acted as leaders, they did not tell other group members what to do. Instead, they listened to people and offered advice. These leaders are often the oldest members of the group. For example, this could be a grandmother was an experienced hunter. A spiritual leader or shaman was part of most communities. The shaman was an advisor and doctor. The shaman was also able to talk to spirits. The shaman could be either a man or a woman. It was believed that people were born with the gift to see spirits and visions. A shaman was one who improved these gifts through years of training. To heal or help answer questions, the shaman spent long periods of time away from the community and performed rituals that involved singing, dancing, and drumming. Families in a community shared everything. When a large animal was killed, the food was divided so every family had a portion. Today, many Inuit families do not hunt for survival. Still, family is still an important part of the Inuit culture. For example, grandparents help raise the children. Communication. Oral or spoken language was the most important form of communication for the Inuit. They have always used the spoken word to teach their culture and traditions to younger members of the community. Writing is a fairly new form of communication for the Inuit. Before missionaries arrived in the Arctic, the Inuit did not have a written language. There was no need to write. Living in such small groups, it was easy to share stories using just the spoken word. Children learned everything they needed to know from their parents and other adults. Ideas of right and wrong were taught through oral stories. The Inuit began writing Inuktitut about 100 years ago. Missionaries created a writing system using the Inuit language Inuktitut. The Inuit used this writing system called syllabics to record traditions and beliefs. In some Arctic regions, the English or Roman alphabet is used. There are different dialects of Inuktitut, but each is a variation of the same language. While some senior Inuit peoples may only speak Inuktitut, most of their children speak English as well. Some children only speak English, but many Inuit communities work to preserve their language by teaching it in school. As other cultures introduced new objects to the Inuit, they created Inuktitut words for these items. For example, before European whalers arrived in the north, the Inuit did not have tea or sugar. They created the word tea for tea and sukak for sugar. More words were created when fur traders settled in the Arctic, and the Inuit were introduced to spoons, kettles, and many other items. Some other cultures believe that the Inuit have 100 different ways to say the word snow. This is not true. There's one Inuktitut word for snow, aput. Similar to the English language, there are many Inuktitut words to describe different types of snow. For example, fluffy, slush, and sticky are some of the words to describe snow. That's a good point. Over here you can see the Inukshuk. Big markers. And this is what their language looks like. I guess that's the street sign. And you can see stop, and then stop in Inuktitut. It's pretty neat. It's beautiful, isn't it? Law and order. Traditional Inuit societies followed formal laws. The Inuit knew that the best way to stay alive was to always act in the best interest of the group. This helped to keep peace. The Inuit believed spirits would judge a person's behavior and punish any wrongdoing. They thought that everything had a soul. If the soul was mistreated, its spirit would return from the dead to get revenge. Rather than written laws, the Inuit had specific rules or principles. Since the Inuit believed animals had souls, they had respect for the animals they hunted. They treated animals with care even after the kill. chiefs might punish them with starvation if they did not treat the animals well. All members of the group obeyed hunting customs. It was believed that they would suffer nature's revenge if these customs were ignored. For example, if the customs were not followed, the group believed hunts would be unsuccessful or stormy weather would make it hard for them to hunt. While a few communities still follow these early customs, most Inuit follow different rules today. They follow the laws of the country in which they live. However, some countries recognize Inuit laws may be more suitable than modern laws. Punishment in some Inuit communities may be different than those in large modern cities. For example, 3 boys in a Canadian Inuit community attacked and injured a man. These boys were not jailed. Instead, they were banished to an island where no other people lived. They had to find a way to live, much like their ancestors did when they first settled in the Arctic. This was hard for the boys since they were raised in communities that had fridges, stoves, televisions, and other modern items. I wonder what happened to them. I don't know. Celebrating culture. Inuit culture has many parts. It can be art, dance, or song. Inuit culture is also present in the way these indigenous peoples live. This includes their physical skills, the games they play, the foods they eat, and the clothing they wear. Inuit peoples believe the Arctic animals, land, sea, and weather are also part of their culture. They use the word Ilikkusik, which means ways and habits, to refer to their culture and way of life. Since Inuit culture cannot be separated from the environment, the Inuit respect their surroundings. Animals are part of their culture, so they treat them with respect. The Inuit believe that animals are on Earth to provide food and clothing for their survival. To show their respect, the Inuit only hunt as many animals as they need. All parts of an animal are used, so its life is not wasted. Over the past 100 years, Inuit culture has changed, but many of the cultural beliefs remain the same. Although they live in houses and shop in stores for food, many Inuit still take part in hunting trips. They build igloos to live in while they are on the hunt. The Inuit now use rifles as well as harpoons for hunting animals. Still, they continue to respect the animals that they hunt for food. They celebrate family as the core of Inuit culture. Like their ancestors, they tell stories to teach a lesson, sing to tell of great adventure, dance to celebrate a successful hunt, and play games to bring their communities together. It's a wonderful smile here. Art and culture. Inuit sculptures are well known in many parts of the world. Sculpting skills were first developed thousands of years ago when the Inuit made tools and weapons from antlers, bones, or walrus tusks. In addition to tools, they made toys and small figures for children. At first, they carved practical objects for their own families, such as combs and needle cases. Once the Europeans arrived, the Inuit traded these objects for other items. Inuit sculptures were brought to other cultures after a young Canadian art student named James Houston visited the Arctic in 1948. He brought some Inuit carvings to Canadian museums and stores. Houston asked the Inuit to make more carvings in return for flour, pots, and tobacco. Soon, people around the world wanted to buy these beautiful works of art. Hello, loud car outside. Time to go. Drive on by, loud car. Drive on by, loud car. Goodbye, loud car. Goodbye, loud car. Goodbye, loud car. Some Inuit artists were able to earn a living creating works from antlers, bone, ivory, and stone. Inuit peoples used clothing to display their art. Inuit women often decorated their clothing with colored fur and feathers to make different patterns. They sewed small pieces of bone, ivory, or shells to form shapes on clothes. They also used some of these items to make jewelry. Today, Inuit art is displayed and sold in many countries around the world. More recently, Inuit artists have started to draw prints and paint. They carve images of animals, people, spirits, and mythological figures into stone. These images are covered in paint and pressed into paper. The Inuit also paint on canvas. They often use their artwork to show their respect for animals and nature. Today, some villages earn their entire income by selling Inuit art. Dressing up. This is what I'm most interested in. I think their clothes look so comfortable and they're so interesting. They're all handmade. She's biting. The Inuit could not have lived in the Arctic without proper clothing. They needed warm, waterproof clothing to keep warm in the chilly and windy Arctic climate. Women made clothes from animal skins and furs. Some clothing items were made from caribou hide. They also used bird feathers or fox, polar bear, and wolf furs to make warm clothing. Inuit usually wore a long, heavy fur coat called a parka. They also wore boots, mittens, and pants. On very cold days, they wore 2 layers of clothing. Body heat became trapped in the air between the layers, keeping the wearer warmer. Say that 10 times fast. During the summer months, lightweight, waterproof clothes were made from sealskin. From head to toe, a winter outfit could weigh as much as 10 pounds or 4.5 kilograms. While women's and men's clothes were very similar, there were a few differences. Women in Greenland wore thigh-high boots, which were lined with moss or dried grass. Men wore shorter boots. Women often wore parkas that had a fur-lined pouch called an amautic. They used this pouch to carry their babies on their back. Women worked hard to make clothes for their family. An animal hide was stretched and dried before it was scraped clean. To soften the hide, women chewed it with their front teeth. Chewing also helped to waterproof the hide. They sewed the seams tightly to keep out wind and cold weather. Narwhal or beluga whale sinews were often used as thread. Although some clothing items are still made using traditional methods, most Inuit peoples buy their clothes from stores. Furs and hides are still worn to keep hunters warm during long trips. Food and fun. There's a recipe here for dried meat. Put it outside, put a fire under it. Dried meat. As with most activities in the Arctic, it was hard to find food. The weather was too cold to grow crops, so Inuit hunted animals as their main source of food. Being skilled hunters has kept the Inuit culture alive for thousands of years. Depending on the time of year, the Inuit hunted different animals. When the ice melted in the summer months, they hunted birds, fish, seals, walruses, and whales. During the warmer months, they also picked berries and dug plant roots from the ground. In the colder months, the Inuit hunted caribou, seals, and sometimes polar bears. The Inuit called these traditional food sources country food. The Inuit peoples often ate raw meat. Raw food did not take much time to prepare, obviously. Raw meat also had some more vitamins than cooked meat, and it was healthier in their diet. Since fruits and vegetables did not grow in the Arctic, the Inuit ate raw meat to get the vitamins they needed to stay healthy. They would dry some of the fish they caught in the summer so it could be eaten during the winter months. Sometimes meat was cut into small pieces and dipped in salt. To the Inuit, preparing meals and eating with friends and family was a fun activity. They thought food tasted better when it was shared, which is true. so communities ate together. Laughing and playing was a welcome change from hunting and working. Many Inuit children and adults played games such as sky tossing, which was the first form of trampoline. To play, one person stood in the center of a large circular piece of animal hide. Many other people stood around the hide, holding the edges. As they pulled the edges, the person standing in the center of the hide was tossed into the air. Other games such as arm pulling, that doesn't sound fun, arm pulling, kickball or oxock, high kicks, seal hop, and tag required players to use their hunting skills. I assume seal hop is hopping over seals. Many of these games did not need equipment. Instead, they required strength and agility. Great ideas. There are not many building materials in the Arctic. Since trees were not available to produce lumber, the Inuit used snow to build their houses. Many cultures call these houses igloos, but the Inuit call them igluagak, which means snow house. Igloo is the Inuktitut word for house. To build an igloo, the Inuit would cut or saw large blocks of packed snow. They piled these blocks on top of one another in the shape of a spiral. This formed a dome. They filled the cracks between the blocks with snow. A low, short tunnel was dug on one side of the dome. This tunnel was used as a doorway. The tunnel kept cold air from blowing into the dome. Often a cold trap or sunken area was cut inside the tunnel. Inside, the igloo was covered with branches and warm furs. Igloos were usually used as temporary homes during winter hunting trips. Summer homes were built from sod or grass. Tents were built using driftwood and whalebones as poles, and seal or caribou skins as coverings. Dog sleds and kayaks helped the Inuit travel far distances for hunting. Walking was especially slow in the winter when people had to trek through deep snow wearing heavy clothing. A team of dogs could pull a sled loaded with supplies, meat, and even a few people. Kayaks were built to fit a single rider. Made from a wooden frame and covered with sealskin, a kayak could move easily through water. It was important for kayaks to move quickly and turn easily when the Inuit were hunting large fish and whales. Several hunters would work together to catch a whale. On hunting trips, they used larger boats called umiaks to carry children, women, and supplies. I kind of want a kayak. It looks really fun. At issue. Many ancient Inuit customs are starting to disappear. Most Inuit peoples no longer move from one place to another in search of food. Instead, they live in settled communities. Like many modern societies, they shop at grocery stores, buy clothes, and watch television. Though many Inuit peoples no longer hunt full-time, they still follow some of the ancient hunting traditions. However, pollution from southern regions has poisoned some of the Inuits' hunting grounds and harmed many animals. Some fish and whales may not be safe to eat. While the Inuit have killed seals for hundreds of years and used their skins to make clothes and food, some modern cultures do not believe animals should be killed for their fur. The Inuit once ate seal meat and sold extra skins for money. Many Inuit groups depended on the money they earned trading furs and skins. Now, few other cultures will buy animal skins. Many Inuit communities have stopped practicing their ancient traditions. They no longer trade for food and other items. Instead, they use money to buy items such as blue jeans and t-shirts, canned foods, televisions, and electricity. Self-government is another topic at issue for Inuit peoples. Before the Arctic regions became part of the United States, Canada, Greenland, and Russia, the Inuit lived by their own rules. countries have claimed these regions, and the Inuit are expected to obey the national laws of these countries. These laws do not always work well for Inuit communities. The Inuit would rather have their own laws and government tailored to their unique way of life. In 1999, a new territory was created in Canada. This territory is named Nunavut, which means our land in Inuktitut. Most of the people living in Nunavut are Inuit. In Nunavut, Inuit work in the government to preserve Inuit traditions and create a governing system that suits the needs of these indigenous peoples. Inuktitut is the official language of Nunavut. However, interpreters translate in 7 languages for the 26 members of Nunavut's legislature. English and Inuktitut are the most commonly used languages. Into the future. Most Inuit communities have a village or hamlet council that makes laws for the village. Since there are very few jobs in the Arctic, people must still work together as a community to survive. The local council manages community finances. In each community, a cooperative board of directors operates stores and exports artwork, fish, furs, handmade crafts, and pelts. Stores in Inuit villages bring modern goods and products to people. Many people want the items they see advertised on television. These communities are also connected to the rest of the world. Airplanes, boats, buses, cars, the internet, and roads all serve to connect people living in the Arctic. In other cultures, nope, living in the Arctic to other cultures, my goodness. While some Inuit may still prefer to live following the traditions of their ancestors, it is not always an option. Some of the animals they once hunted for food are now endangered, and it is illegal to kill them. Chemicals spilled in Arctic waters have poisoned other animals. Inuit children no longer help their mothers sew or prepare food and skins, nor do they help their fathers hunt every day. Instead, they go to school. Arctic schools teach Inuit children about their history and traditions. Children learn traditional stories and are taught to speak Inuktitut. Students learn traditional skills such as building wooden sleds and sewing skins. They also learn about Inuit art and culture. Some Inuit peoples have become famous outside of their communities, and I'm sorry if I mispronounce things coming up here. Like Susan Aglukark is a popular singer in Canada and Alaska. She sings songs in both English and Inuktitut. Songs such as OCM and Hinanaho tell stories about the culture and concerns of the Inuit peoples. OCM is an expression of joy used by Inuit peoples to greet friends and family. Hinanaho is a song about surviving a cold Arctic winter. Kinojwag Ashfaq is a well-known Inuit artist. She paints, does beadwork, draws, and carves. Born in 1927, Ashfaq lived a traditional nomadic Inuit life. In 1963, the National Film Board of Canada made a film about her to document Inuit art. Although her work is sold in stores around the world, she continues to live in her Inuit community. Ashfaq's a member of the Order of Canada. Pretty sure she's no longer with us. She was born in 1927, but I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure. I believe that's the end of this book. Yeah, that's the end. But I want to look at this photo because this is actually my favorite photo. So, first of all, it looks like they're working at like a Blockbuster or like, you know, their own independent Blockbuster. Probably selling or renting VHS tapes here and snacks over there, like a real Blockbuster. And I like how all 3 of them, including this one, are looking right at the camera like, are you gonna buy the movie? Like, in the rotary phone right here. this photo is very clearly from like 1989 or something, but I wonder what if it's from like 2014 and that's just what this store carries. I don't know. But I think this photo, I love the babies also looking right at the camera. That's pretty great. But that's the end of our book tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you found this video to be relaxing and educational.